What if I told you that there was a secret that will absolutely make you look shredded, ripped, and could also be beneficial with helping you, especially if you've been stuck at, let's say, a certain body fat percentage for quite some time? Well, hey, let's talk about that in today's episode. And understand this, and I'm going to say this a lot during, today's episode, is that what I'm about to share with you is not sustainable by any means. Like, this goes against everything that we coach our members on at Heartletics when it comes to creating sustainable habits. There's 7 of them, right? You're eating a specific calorie range for your body type. Your goal is to burn body fat. You're eating a certain amount of macronutrients, specifically protein, right? And then you have your resistance training, and then you have your NEATs, which is your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, and then you have hydration, and then you have obviously, the stress management, which is huge, and then the recovery, and then the sleep. Like, there's so many different essential, right, sustainable habits. What I'm about to share with you is not sustainable by any means, but here's the thing. If you want to look good with your shirt off for a particular day, like let's say a photo shoot or let's say a certain event where you have to weigh a certain number, right? Or even let's just say a pool party, this is going to help you look your absolute best. And then also at the same time, it's going to be beneficial for somebody that's, let's say, stuck with maybe they're around 20% body fat and they've been dieting for quite some time and doing everything under the sun and they're just stuck. Their body fat's not really moving in the right direction. It's just kind of hovering right there. They're almost in this plateau area, right? This can be beneficial for them as well. So what I'm going to be sharing with you guys is what's called a water cut. Now, I've done this probably at least 12 times, and I'm probably going to do it a bunch more times because it always works. Once again, it's not sustainable by any means, but I'll give you some clarity here. Let's say UFC fighters, right? Or boxers even, they typically weigh in the day before the event. So let's say if they're fighting on Saturday nights, they're going to weigh in on, let's say, Friday nights or around Friday afternoon. And typically, right, most of these fighters, they'll do what's called a water cut to cut down, right, lose a bunch of water weight so they could weigh a certain low amount and then rehydrate, recarb right back up the evening of the weigh-ins and then obviously the morning of the events. And by the time that they're actually fighting, they could be up to 5, 10, 15, even 20 pounds heavier. Back when I was doing, amateur mixed martial arts, I specifically remember one fight. It was where I weighed in at 169 pounds because I would fight at welterweight, which was 170. And for amateurs in the state of Ohio, you had to weigh in the morning of. Right, you don't get the luxury of weighing in the day before. So the morning of, I remember cutting weights, and I remember weighing in at 169, and then I would have like Pedialyte because it's filled with a bunch of electrolytes, right? And just eating a bunch of food, rehydrate, everything like that. Took a little nap, and I remember weighing myself back on the scale. I think this was maybe like 2 or 3 hours where I had to go back to the venue for to fight and get everything all ready, and I was up to 182 pounds. So I put on like 13 pounds in the course of like 8 hours, A lot of it obviously being water weight, but still, hopefully you understand what I'm saying with guys cutting weight for a particular event. And then you have guys that is, let's say, they're doing a water cut because they want to look their absolute best. Like, let's say they're going on a bodybuilding stage or a physique competitor stage, right? Where they're getting judged based on how they look. And so they had to make sure that they're diced, they're shredded to the bone, right? Plain and simple. Maybe also if, let's say, you have a photo shoot coming up. That's typically why I do water cuts nowadays, right? Because I don't compete anymore in mixed martial arts or boxing. So I'll typically go through a water cut to look my absolute best when it comes to looking that way for those photo shoots, for marketing purposes, everything like that, right? And then, there's the pool parties, there's the weddings, the anniversaries, hey, I got a bunch of family members and friends coming in town and they haven't seen me in quite some time and I want to just, give them the jaw drop like, holy cow, you look amazing, right? So that's where it's all into this category of, why you might want to consider a water cut. And then we have this category over here where it's like, okay, you're stuck. And I would highly recommend that if you're around 20% body fat, this would be a good opportunity or chance for you to do a water cut. Simply because if you are, let's say, 30% body fat, I wouldn't recommend that because you can still diet down a lot more ways to go. And basically, when you get to this certain threshold around typically 20%, 15% body fat, 12% body fat, 10% body fat, 8% body fat. It gets very hard, very difficult. And anytime you're dieting down, right? Like, you got to think about it like this. Your body literally thinks that it's dying and it doesn't want to die, right? It's like, oh no, like no more calories, no more food. Like we're burning off all these, energy, calories, etc. Like it's gonna do whatever it can to make sure that resistance line is sturdy, right? So that way you don't, obviously die. Plain and simple. Your body's literally trying to survive here. And so what that water cut can do, especially if you're around that 20% range, is really help you with break through that resistance, where it's kind of like the Roger Bannister story of, the guy that ran the 4-minute mile. And as soon as he was able to do it, like a bunch of other people were able to compete and do that as well. Think about it. Before he was able to compete and accomplish that 4-minute mile, doctors thought that the human heart would explode. So it's just like he broke the self-limiting beliefs. Well, you can do that within your own mindset with training your body to say, okay, hey, we're going to do this water cut. It's going to be completely aggressive. It's not going to be sustainable at all. But let's say you go from 20% body fat down to 18% body fat. Well, guess what? Your body's like, okay, hey, we're at 18% body fat. We did not die. We're okay. We're cool, right? Like it's perfectly fine. So it's breaking down those resistance lines. So what is this water cut? It's a 2-week process, okay? And I'll break it down for you. So let's say we're starting on Monday, and then the following week, that's Sunday, that's the day of the event, right? That's the day where, you're going to look your best for a photo shoot or weigh in for a fight, whatever the case may be, right? That's the day of the event. And the water cut is broken up into 3 different factors or categories, right? You have your carb manipulation, you have your water manipulation, and then you have your training. Okay, everything is going to be completely different than probably what you're used to as far as your training days, as far as your cardiovascular activities, as far as your macronutrients and calories. It's going to be completely different here for the next 2 weeks. But hear me out. You will look your absolute best if you do this properly. Okay, so let's first talk about carbs. Okay, because that's the biggest thing you got to understand. It's carb manipulation for sure. That very first week, okay, you are having no more than 100 grams of carbs, okay? No more. And the only carbohydrates that you are allowed to have is, I would say, vegetables and fruit. I would say stay away from maybe like bananas and apples, right? You want fruits that's like high in fiber, like berries, right? Like strawberries, blueberries, different things like that nature. I would just, keep it simple. If you can just try your best to have it, nothing with vegetables, that's typically what I do. And you can get away with that, right? But I understand that sometimes, hey, you want something sweet because it's not like you can have some candy or anything like that, right? You can't have sugar. That, a berry or some grapes, something like that, that's going to, at least quench that taste bud of having the sweets, So the first week, no more than 100 grams of carbs. And once again, coming from primarily fibrous vegetables and fruits, okay? Now the second week, on that Monday, okay, you are having no more than 100 grams of carbs, but no fruits. Only for this week, just vegetables, okay? No fruits. So on that Monday, no more than 100 grams of carbs. On Tuesday, no more than 80 grams of carbs. Remember, all vegetables, right? No more than 80. On Wednesday, you're having no more than 50 grams of carbs. And then on Thursday, no more than 30 grams of carbs. And then on Friday, basically very little, right? I would say keep it below 5 grams of carbs. If you can try 0, go for it, plain and simple. And this is what you're doing, is basically you're depleting yourself of all the glycogen, right? And I'll explain here the midst of the madness as we get to the end of the episode, but you're depleting yourself of all that glycogen, okay? Now on Saturday, this is going to be the biggest shocker for you. You are going to have at least 300 grams of carbs. I would say anywhere from 300 to 500 grams. You just have to gauge, with our members, like we typically want them as soon as they hit 300 grams of carbs to send us over some progress photos. We want to be able to see if they need more carbs or to hold it tight, right? So I'll say play it safe. Try it with just at least 300 grams of carbs. But here's the thing. This is not going to be fruits. This is not going to be vegetables. This is going to be your starchy carbs. This is going to be your simple carbs. This is going to be the carbs that's going to stick to you. Because when I talk about the water and everything like that next, it's going to make a lot more sense. But, these carbs are going to stick to your muscles, right? This is going to be the glycogen that's going to be stored, and it's going to make you look absolutely ripped. So you're eating an abundance of carbs, and the carbs are going to be like Pop-Tarts, honey, right? Maple syrup, pancakes, cereals, rice cakes, right? Like rices, jasmine rice, white rice, basmati rice, pasta you can get away with, like different things like this. Okay, where it's your starchy carbs, simple carbs, right? That's just going to stick to you. Okay, and you're having an abundance of them, at least 300. Okay, so that's playing it right, painting the picture as far as this carb manipulation for these next 2 weeks. And then on Sunday would be once again the day of the event. So you wake up, you look at yourself, and you're like, holy cow, I've never seen abs before. Now I actually see them. Like, this looks amazing, right? And then by the next few days, it's all going to go back to normal, just simply because, once again, this isn't sustainable. It's only going to last for maybe 1 day, 2 max, plain and simple, right? So that's the carbs. Now, as far as, let's say, the water, this is going to get a little different. So hear me out. We typically recommend guys to have around a gallon of water a day, as coaching them just through their training program. For this water cut, you're going to load up on the water in the very beginning, and then you're going to start depleting near the end of the weeks. Okay, so I would say that the very first week, try your best. If you're drinking a gallon of water a day, try your best to double that at least. So if you're drinking a gallon, try your best to have at least 2 gallons of water a day or more. You don't need to drink more than 3, that's for sure. Okay, that's the very first week. The second week, you're cutting down. Just like how you're cutting down with the carbohydrates, you're cutting down also with the water for this week, okay? So on Monday, right, the second week, you're going to have 1 gallon of water a day. On Tuesday, 3/4 a gallon. On Wednesday, half a gallon. And on Thursday, you're going to have a 1/4 gallon of water. Now hear me out. On Friday, you're going to have maybe 3 to, let's say, max 5 bottles of water, okay? Saturday, virtually no liquids. So think about it. On Saturday, you're eating a whole bunch of carbs, and now you're not drinking anything with it because you're depleting yourself. Like, think about having a rag, right, filled with water, and you're rinsing it out, right? That's what you're doing with your body. But then you're eating all these carbohydrates right back, and there's no liquids inside of it, basically, right? And it's literally sticking to your muscles. Like, you're going to be more vascular, you're going to be more defined, more shredded, more aesthetic. And this is why, once again, like, people do this for bodybuilding, competitions and photo shoots and different aspects of that. So there's a myth to the madness with all of this, okay? So on Saturday, I will give you some tips to help you out because I don't want you to, go ahead and not drink anything at all. Have something that is going to better dehydrate you. So my preferences is things like Diet Cokes, right? I'll have 2 or 3 Diet Cokes because it's going to dehydrate you. Or I'll have some energy drinks, right? 1 or 2 energy drinks. We know some clients that, they'll typically have like red wine, right? Because obviously alcohol is going to dehydrate you. I wouldn't say have beer or anything like that, but red wine or just straight alcohol, that typically helps out also with just dehydrating that process. So that's the water manipulation. Now, the third aspect to this is the training. And I would say that in the second week, the first week, it doesn't matter, stick with your normal routine. The third week of the training, high reps, high volume, high sets, everything like that. Just try your best to deplete, right? As you're not eating any carbs that second week and you're really depleting everything, the muscle glycogen, right? Try to do your best as to getting as much volume in. You're not going to be strong at all that week, right? Hear me out. It's just, you got to understand that, okay? So do your best to do high reps, high volume, deplete all the glycogen out of your muscles, right? Whether it's full body workouts, push-pull legs, it doesn't matter at all. Just when you show up to the gym, deplete yourself of that glycogen, right? Walk more, do more push-ups, do more crunches, whatever the case may be. You are trying to, once again, rinse out everything in your body, okay? And then you load up on the carbs, which helps out tremendously well, okay? And then Sunday morning, hey, wake up, do some push-ups, sit-ups, do your progress photos, look yourself in the mirror, right? Give yourself a big high five because it takes a lot of discipline for these 2 weeks to do this properly, And so you should feel very proud of yourself. But hear me out. It's not sustainable at all, right? Like, after you accomplish that, like, feel very proud of yourself. go have a cheat meal or something like that, right? Go have some burgers or fries because you earned it. It definitely, right, is hard to do for those 2 weeks, but that's it, right? You once again, like, there's people in this category that's doing it for a special event, or let's say a photo shoot, or looking good for a particular day or a pool party or a wedding. And then you have people over here in this category that's, let's say, they're doing it to break through some of the resistance lines that they might be struggling with on their body fats. And I once again recommend it if you are, let's say, if you're above 25% body fat, I wouldn't recommend doing this. Below 25, it's okay to do. Hear me out. I do want to say this real quick before I forget, is that your calories and protein will change. I would say that as far as your calories go for these past 2 weeks, as you're drinking more water, drinking, less carbohydrates, you're probably going to be lower amount of calories. That's perfectly fine. To help you out with more satiation, try your best to eat more protein, especially during the first week and a half of this. So I would say if you're typically having around 1 gram of protein, bump it up to maybe 1.2 or 1.5 grams of protein per pound of body weight. The more protein, the better you're going to look for that special day or that special event. And then I would say that as you go to, let's say, Friday and Saturday before the event, so that second week, I would say, try to keep the fats pretty low if you can. And then I would say that, on Saturday, that's the day where you're carb loading. Keep your protein moderate. So take your body weight, multiply it by 0.8. That's the bare minimum of protein that you need. You should be fine with that. But hear me out. This works great for, once again, if you want to look good for one particular day, 2 max. If you want to break through some of the resistance lines on your fat loss journey, try it out, give it a try, do it with precaution, right? It's definitely hard to do and it takes a lot of discipline, but at the end of the day, once you get through with this, you're going to be very, very happy with the results that you're going to be looking like on Sunday, the day of the event for this. And that is all. So hopefully you understand a myth to the madness when it comes to water cutting and how guys look good for photo shoots or whatever the case may be. It's carb manipulation, water manipulation, training to do it in a way where you're depleting all the glycogen. Myth to the madness, by all means, it works. Give it a try if you want.